It's over, and it's not even close. Blake Lively's legal team just suffered a devastating blow, and the ripple effects are shaking all of Hollywood. For weeks, her PR machine tried to spin control. Her lawyers worked overtime, her allies in the industry whispered behind closed doors, but none of it could stop what just happened. A stunning legal defeat has left Blake's camp scrambling, confused, and completely on defense. And in court filings that are now public, the truth is clearer than ever: they overplayed their hand. What started as a controlled narrative has unraveled into a full-blown crisis, one that now threatens not only Blake's credibility, but also her legal standing in one of the most controversial celebrity feuds of the decade. We're seeing panicked reactions, conflicting statements, and silence from the people who were once the loudest voices defending her. Something has shifted, a storm is brewing, and the evidence now suggests that Blake's team is losing control of the very case they started. In this breakdown, we're walking through every twist, every strategic failure, and every shocking revelation that led to this crushing moment. From key witness reversals to the media turning cold from leaked texts to unexpected allies flipping sides, this is a full expose on how Blake's legal strategy just imploded in real time, and why her team is now quite literally running for cover. The downfall didn't come all at once. It started slowly, a missed deadline here, a weak filing there. But inside courtrooms and press circles, people noticed something was off. Blake Lively's legal team, once hailed as meticulous and aggressive, began to show cracks. Their filings lacked the usual precision, their arguments started losing impact. And then the court issued a ruling that changed everything. This wasn't just any procedural delay. It was a direct rejection of a central motion filed by Blake's team. The judge, who had until then remained neutral and reserved, offered unusually sharp language in the ruling. She emphasized that the motion lacked sufficient evidentiary support, and even questioned its relevance in the broader legal framework. That was the beginning of the public unraveling. Internally, sources say panic set in. The team began holding longer strategy meetings. Blake herself, once completely hands-off, reportedly joined in on conference calls. Advisors warned her that the tone in the courtroom had shifted. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team, calm and quiet for weeks, began filing subtle, confident motions. It was clear they had a long game, and Blake's team had underestimated it. Then came the leak. A partial transcript from a closed-door hearing began circulating in media circles. While it didn't include sensitive names, it made clear that Blake's attorneys were asked tough questions they didn't adequately answer. That transcript was a warning shot, one that went viral across legal commentary channels, sparking discussions. Like, is Blake's team really prepared for this fight? Soon after, media outlets started shifting tone. No longer parroting Blake's team's statements, journalists began digging deeper. Old quotes were reanalyzed, PR statements were seen as dodges, and legal analysts began pointing out that Blake's central claim had never been directly proven. In filings, only implied. What followed next only worsened the public impression. It's the stuff of nightmares for any celebrity in crisis: leaked communications that expose internal disarray. And that's exactly what happened when a cache of emails and texts between PR reps and legal consultants made their way into public discussion. While not illegally obtained, these communications, submitted as part of discovery in a related motion, painted a picture far different than what Blake's team wanted the public to see. The emails showed deep internal division, with members of Blake's PR firm privately expressing doubt about their own messaging. This may not play well, one strategist wrote, referring to a talking point about the YouTuber Subpoenas: "We could get dragged if this backfires." Another text warned, "The optics are shifting, we're starting to look like bullies, not defenders." That last line hit a nerve, because for weeks public sympathy had been with Blake. She had positioned herself as standing up for boundaries and truth. But now, with YouTubers and creators speaking out and legal experts questioning the subpoena's scope, the narrative was turning against her. And then came the shocker: a major celebrity friend publicly distanced themselves from the drama. While careful with wording, they told an interviewer they were unaware of the legal strategy and hope it's resolved fairly for all parties. It was polite, but between the lines, everyone saw what it meant. Even Blake's inner circle was starting to fracture. Meanwhile, her legal team failed to contain the fallout. Every response they issued was combative, dry, and tone-deaf. Even worse, their rebuttals didn't clarify, they just repeated vague claims. Public confidence began to slip. Legal analysts on platforms like Legal, Emily D. Baker, and Law and Lumber all noted the same thing: the case was losing clarity and support. The tide was turning, and Blake's team didn't seem to have a lifeboat. For weeks, Justin Baldoni's side had kept relatively quiet. They didn't leak, they didn't go on podcasts, they didn't comment on gossip. But then came the counterpunch, and it was precise, well-documented, and completely disarming. In a court filing that landed like a bombshell, Baldoni's attorneys submitted evidence directly rebutting multiple claims made by Blake's legal team. It included video footage, email metadata, and sworn witness statements. Even more powerful was the calm legal tone, free of emotional pleas or media grandstanding. It simply laid out facts, and the facts hurt Blake's case. Among the most talked about items was a time-stamped message exchange that undercut a previously publicized version of events. In simple terms, it made Blake's timeline look questionable at best and misleading at worst. The judge immediately called for a closed-door hearing to discuss the discrepancy. The media couldn't resist. Headlines exploded. Baldoni strikes back with receipts. New filing casts doubt on Blake's timeline. Legal experts say Blake's case critically damaged. Public sentiment shifted further. Creators, fans, and even neutral observers began pointing out that Baldoni's approach felt methodical and honest, while Blake's legal strategy felt increasingly chaotic and overreaching. And perhaps most telling, the backlash wasn't just external. Insiders say that at least one senior member of Blake's legal team requested to step back from the case, citing ethical discomfort. If true, that kind of internal disruption is nearly impossible to recover from. Blake's PR team went into overdrive, but even their best efforts couldn't stop what was coming next. A judge's decision that sent Blake's entire strategy into freefall. The courtroom was tense. Attorneys were present. Reporters filled every corner of the public gallery. And then the judge issued her ruling, a formal rejection of Blake's team's attempt to limit discovery, including text messages between her and another key public figure. Her words were clear: the request for suppression lacks sufficient legal foundation. The materials in question are relevant and admissible under applicable standards. That ruling didn't just hurt, it shattered Blake's entire shield. From a legal standpoint, it opened the door to new questions. From a public standpoint, it confirmed everyone's worst suspicions that Blake's team had been trying to prevent transparency. That was the breaking point. Within hours, social media was on fire. Hashtags like #JusticeNotSpin and #TransparencyWins trended for hours. News segments aired expert panels dissecting the judge's wording. Even international outlets began covering the story. Blake's legal team had no good response. Their press liaison issued a vague statement about continuing to pursue justice, but it felt hollow. Worse, no lawyer from the firm appeared on the post-hearing media call. It was radio silence, and that silence said more than words ever could. Back in Hollywood, whispers became full-blown conversations. A-list actors reportedly declined to comment when asked about Blake's case. Some avoided her entirely at events. And a major production Blake was set to co-produce, sources say it's now on hold. Pending legal clarity, everything was falling apart. And for the first time in years, Blake Lively's team, once celebrated as one of the sharpest and most strategic, looked completely cornered. When the ruling hit the headlines and the transcripts went viral, it wasn't just legal commentators who took notice. Hollywood insiders immediately began recalibrating. What had once been a closely managed case was now spiraling into open scandal. And the damage wasn't just legal, it was personal, professional, and reputational. Studios and producers quietly distanced themselves. A streaming project that Blake was developing reportedly put contract discussions on hold indefinitely. A brand deal she was linked to quietly removed her photo from their landing page. These weren't press releases, they were quiet moves with loud implications. Behind the scenes, agents and managers from other talent started whispering what many feared to say publicly: if this case continues, she could become uninsurable. That's Hollywood speak for reputational liability. Once someone becomes too controversial to attach to a project, deals dry up fast, no matter how famous or talented they are. Even more striking was the shift from her peers. The silence became louder. Celebrities who once liked, commented, or reposted Blake's statements now avoided the topic entirely. Some unfollowed. Others gave generic answers when pressed in interviews. It's a private matter, one actor said, but their body language said it all. This was not a story anyone wanted to be attached to anymore. And then came the YouTuber response wave. The creators who were initially served with subpoenas, some with just a few thousand followers, began posting response videos, but this wasn't rage or retaliation. These were articulate, calmly delivered responses showing receipts, timelines, and rebuttals. The public loved it. One video titled "Why I Won't Be Silenced" by Blake Lively's lawyers hit over 1 million views in a day. Another, "They tried to intimidate me, here's the truth," was trending on legal TikTok. These creators weren't attacking, they were defending their right to comment, and audiences saw the imbalance immediately. A list star versus small creator, the sympathy swung hard toward the underdog. Blake's team didn't help their case either. Instead of pulling back, they issued a third vague legal letter, warning creators not to speculate on confidential legal matters. But by that point, it didn't matter. The Streisand effect had kicked in. The more they tried to suppress, the more the content exploded online. And it wasn't just YouTubers. Legal commentators joined in. Former prosecutors, constitutional lawyers, and First Amendment specialists began analyzing the situation. On podcasts and YouTube breakdowns, they raised serious concerns about Blake's team using the legal system to chill speech. One expert put it plainly, this looks like a SLAPP attempt, a strategic lawsuit against public participation. And judges don't like that. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team remained silent, the smartest move they could have made. With Blake's team scrambling to plug holes in a sinking ship, Baldoni appeared composed, professional, and focused solely on the law. No media spin, no emotional tweets. Just court filings, precise, compelling, and most importantly, winning. What became clear to everyone, fans, lawyers, and producers alike, was this: Blake's team underestimated how savvy and connected the creator space had become. They assumed subpoenas would scare people. Instead, it galvanized them. It turned individuals into a movement. And that movement is now dictating the public narrative, not Blake's PR team. As this part of the case winds down, what remains is a vacuum once filled by her carefully crafted image, now overtaken by doubt, frustration, and backlash. Public confidence in her legal strategy has evaporated, her PR credibility is shaken, and her team retreating fast, avoiding the media, canceling appearances, and internally blaming one another for the fallout. And all of this happened before trial. The real showdown hasn't even begun. But if this pre-trial meltdown is any indication, Blake's team may not survive the courtroom, much less public scrutiny, now that the legal team has lost momentum and the PR strategy has backfired. The question on everyone's mind is, what's next for Blake Lively? The verdict from the court of public opinion is already clear. But in Hollywood, there's one final battlefield where everything is ultimately decided: reputation. And right now, Blake's reputation is in free fall. Let's look at the numbers. Social media analysis reveals that positive sentiment toward Blake has dropped significantly, some platforms showing a 40% decline in just under 2 weeks. Comments once filled with support have turned skeptical. "I used to admire her," one post reads. "But this is starting to feel like a power play gone wrong." Those kinds of remarks are everywhere now, and they're no longer confined to niche forums. They're front and center on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and they're being echoed by people inside the industry. Insiders now speak of a massive miscalculation. Blake Lively's team assumed that she was too beloved, too powerful, too protected by legacy media to suffer backlash. But in this creator-driven landscape, public favor can flood fast, especially when it appears someone is using power to suppress speech. The subpoenas aimed at small creators were the biggest turning point. What Blake's team thought would silence dissent only ended up amplifying it, with receipts, reactions, and creator solidarity like we haven't seen since the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. And yet, even as the narrative shifted, Blake Lively hasn't responded personally. That silence, once seen as elegant and wise, is now being criticized as evasive. Creators have pointed out the irony: "You served me papers, I responded respectfully. But you won't even issue a statement." That criticism has stuck. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni continues to play the long game. He's appeared in public only briefly, avoiding all direct commentary. But his calm presence and visible support from his co-stars and friends send a clear message: he's not backing down, and more importantly, he has nothing to hide. And Blake, she's been noticeably absent. No red carpets, no interviews, no photos with Ryan Reynolds, which has only added fuel to speculation about the strain. This is putting on her inner circle, their once famous joint PR efforts. Charming Instagram stories, cheeky tweets, date night pap walks have all but disappeared. And people are noticing, but the biggest problem for Blake isn't legal, it's narrative. She's lost control of it. Her story, once centered on boundaries, advocacy, and truth, has now been overtaken by creator testimonies, legal expert commentary, and leaked documents. And every time her team responds, it sounds like damage control, not leadership. Sources close to her team now admit they didn't expect this much pushback. "We assumed people would trust her," one PR insider reportedly told a journalist off record. "We didn't think they'd start picking everything apart, but they did." And that mistake has left Blake without the very thing she built her career on: public trust. So can she recover? It won't be easy. Legal setbacks can sometimes be spun, but reputation hits, especially ones involving free speech and overreach, take far longer to repair. Even a well-crafted apology might not be enough. Not because people are unforgiving, but because the strategy felt intentional, coordinated, calculated. And in today's world, people don't want perfection, they want accountability. To recover, Blake would need to do more than let her lawyers speak. She would need to speak directly, honestly, and acknowledge the overreach. She would need to address not just what went wrong, but why it was ever allowed to happen in the first place. That means explaining why YouTubers were targeted, why evidence was suppressed, and why her team aggressively controlled the press, while avoiding hard questions. Will she do it? Only time will tell. But every day she stays silent, the narrative moves further out of her control. And Hollywood, fickle, fast, and unforgiving, is already looking for the next story. This case isn't just about courtrooms anymore. It's about public power, platform accountability, and the very real shift in who controls the narrative, the media elite or the creator economy. And in that battle, Blake Lively's team just lost. It's done. The illusion of control is shattered. The full weight of strength gone. And Blake Lively's team, once so confident, so composed, so calculated, now finds itself cornered, confused, and completely exposed. After months of aggressive legal maneuvering, PR spins, and attempts to silence the growing noise, the strategy that was supposed to protect Blake has imploded in public view. And what's left behind is a trail of damage that no press release can fix. Let's be honest, this wasn't just a legal strategy gone wrong. This was a misreading of the cultural moment. A catastrophic failure to understand how powerful, connected, and unafraid creators have become. Blake's legal team, perhaps in a bubble of celebrity ego and legal arrogance, believed that a few well-placed subpoenas, carefully crafted statements, and targeted filings would keep things quiet. Instead, it lit a firestorm, and here's the thing: it didn't have to be this way. There was a version of this case where Blake Lively could have stood for transparency, where her legal team could have focused on facts, not suppression, where creators were respected, not subpoenaed, where PR leaned into clarity, not coercion. But that version of the case never happened, because from the moment subpoenas were issued to YouTubers, some with just hundreds of followers, the story stopped being about facts and became about power. And when power is abused, people fight back, and they did brilliantly, calmly, creatively. From reaction videos to legal breakdowns, creators turned the spotlight back on Blake's team. They exposed the tactics, they published the timelines, they asked the hard questions that journalists wouldn't, and their audiences responded in force. That's what Blake's team never anticipated, that the internet wouldn't cower it, would unite, that creators wouldn't be silenced, they'd go viral, and that the judge, most importantly, wouldn't be impressed by flashy filings or media pressure, only by truth, relevance, and the law. When the court ruled against Blake's motion to suppress key evidence, it was a decisive moment. The judge didn't just reject the request, she called it out for what it was: legally insufficient and irrelevant to the case's core. And with that, the walls came down. What followed was a collapse in public trust, a media retreat, a professional distancing. Creators, legal experts, even former fans all saw it clearly: the emperor had no clothes. And the damage was already done. Reputation doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks slowly through contradicts, overreach, silence, and then suddenly it breaks. And for Blake Lively, that moment is now. Because what started as an attempt to control a narrative has now become a case study in how not to handle legal pressure in the digital age. Her allies are silent. Her legal team is reeling. Her PR firm is being scrutinized, and perhaps most painfully of all, the creators who were once powerless against her influence, now they're leading the conversation. This is bigger than a lawsuit. It's about trust. It's about balance. It's about what happens when someone with influence chooses force over fairness and gets caught. Let's be very clear, this wasn't about winning or losing emotion in court. It was about credibility, and Blake's team lost that completely. Not because of one filing or one strategy, but because they forgot the fundamental rule of modern reputation: transparency wins, spin fails. And now they're paying the price. So where do we go from here? The case continues, but the court of public opinion has already delivered a verdict. Blake's strategy has failed. Her silence is no longer strategic, it's suspicious. Her once unbreakable image is now under review. And the internet, that unstoppable force of collective memory and creative power, isn't going to forget. The apology tour won't work this time, not without accountability, not without truth. Because if there's one thing this whole case has proven, it's that people are paying attention. And when creators are attacked unfairly, they don't back down, they rise up. Blake Lively's team may regroup, they may pivot, they may even win a motion here or there, but the damage is done, the moment is gone. And the people, the creators, the fans, the critics have moved on from believing the spin. They saw the truth, and they chose it. In the end, this isn't just the story of a celebrity's legal misstep. It's the story of how the digital age empowers truth. How creators once dismissed now set the tone. How judges, when confronted with gamesmanship, demand evidence. And how public figures, no matter how beloved, must be accountable when they go too far. So here we are, the moment of reckoning. Blake's team lost the motion, lost the PR battle, and lost the trust that made her untouchable. That's not just a loss, that's a collapse. And while the cameras fade and the headlines change, one truth remains: you can't silence a movement. You can't intimidate honesty, and you can't win a war of truth with tactics built on fear. They lost, and now everyone sees it.